Hello and welcome to the eBike4Bart Cyclosportif here on Zwift. Now today we have partnered with INEOS for a group ride absolutely packed with stars from the area of sport, and it's not the INEOS that you're used to in relation to cycling or in relation to Zwift. We're partnered up with Team INEOS UK, who are a Portsmouth-based sailing team helmed by none other than Sir Ben Ainslie, the most decorated sailing Olympian of all time. And basically, he's taking a break from the 2021 America's Cup and be swapping his sails to basically raise money for the Bike for Bart Foundation, which is a fundraising effort held annually by the Andrew Simpson Foundation, which was founded by Ben Ainslie in memory of Beijing gold medalist Andrew Bart Simpson, and is designed to transform the lives of young people through sailing. Now, joining him today will be many of his teammates from Team INEOS UK, including Ian Percy OBE, who you can just see, or will see very, very shortly, pounding away on the pedals. He's actually given me a wave already in his virtual world. And there's many other stars as well. Chris Lawless from Team INEOS. There is the man himself, Ian Percy. He's actually inside a simulator. More about that a little bit later on. Lots of other riders taking part on this route. We've got 3 courses out on the route at the moment, and the course that the riders will be taking today is 2 laps of the greatest London route. So approximately 50 kilometers in total, not too hilly, so around 150 meters of elevation. And they'll be taking a little bit of a loop out into the Surrey lanes, as well as taking in some of the famous sights and sounds of London, including Big Ben. And there is Sir Ben Ainslie himself. It looks like he's in the Nautilus Library, but I believe that is that's one of his many lounges that he has on the Isle of Wight there. He's been riding for about 20 minutes or so. It's going to be a lot of fun, but as you can probably tell already by my rather staccato start to this, I'm not a sailing expert at all by any stretch of the imagination. So thank goodness I have alongside me Shirley Robertson OBE, herself a double gold medalist in sailing in the Olympic Games. Thank goodness you're here, Shirley, because this is something quite different. I'm going to need a bit of a hand.
Well, I'm delighted to help out today. The Andrew Simpson Foundation is a big deal to sailors. You can see that by the number and quality of sailors who are taking part today, and the fact that INEOS aren't out training. This is an important morning for everybody involved, and it's exciting. It's going to be a good ride. They say it's not a race, Matt, but I'm suspecting it's going to be pretty competitive.
I think it might be a little bit competitive. The riders are already well on their way, and I did see a few riders warming up well, very, very intensely, in fact, especially the grinders, and we'll talk a little bit about the grinders a little bit later on. But it's worth talking a little bit before we get into the action as they just stream around the roads of London here, Shirley, about the foundation itself, because we're hoping to raise some money here, and you can get in touch via Ben Ainslie's Facebook page and the Bike4Bart webpage, because raising funds for this charity is so important and very close to Ben's heart.
It's a great foundation. I mean, it does what it says in the tin. It takes young people sailing, and not just sort of a one-off, occasion, not a taster session, but it helps them develop a passion for the sport, and whether they helps them develop a career in the sport if they want to. And for £70, you can introduce 2 young people to an incredible sport that really develops confidence, I think, and independence. And I mean, I know we're all biased, but it's a lifelong passion and a real affinity with the sea and with the water. So they do great work, and every year they're developing new bases, not just within the UK but also abroad. Obviously, the foundation came about because of a very sad incident when Bart passed away training for the America's Cup, but he was really special to everyone. He always had a smile on his face and a kind word for everyone, and I think today is about raising money. It's about having a good ride, but also remembering a great supporter of the sport and a great friend to many of the people riding today.
Well, there you go. Very eloquent words there. But please, we urge you to get in contact. stick a few quid in the bin, because it does sound like an exceptionally worthy cause. And it is great to see some real legends of sailing out on the roads of Zwift today. We've just clicked on, we've moved to another screen, because as I explained before, we've got 2 laps that the riders will face today of around 25 kilometres. The vast majority of the route takes place in the centre of London, but the group that we're looking at now with Chris Lawless, this is the A group. They set out at 10 o'clock. They've already got 25 minutes under the wheels, and they're moving along at quite a good pace. I think they've done about 18 kilometres at the moment, just heading into the Surrey lanes. This is a group, Shirley, that contains Giles Scott, a gold medalist at Rio, Matt Gottrell, a gold medalist rower, and Ben Williams, and also Chris Lawless of Team INEOS. You can just see him highlighted there, the only road pro, the only cycling pro in the mix. And this group looks like they're moving along pretty tastily at the moment.
Yeah, they're going fast, aren't they? I mean, no pressure on Chris. I guess he has to be first back, and there might be questions asked. But also, you know, you mentioned Giles Scott there, who's he's Ben Ainslie's tactician for the America's Cup, gold medalist in Rio, and also he would have been in Tokyo right now defending his gold medal. And he's a handy rider, particularly for that class of boat in the games. It's the heavyweight single-handed. You need a pair of pretty strong legs. So he's out on his bike a lot, and definitely perhaps the favourite of the INEOS team to do well today.
You can just see Scott there in the centre of your screen. He is this group's ride leader. That's why he has that rather fancy beacon just above him, rotating rather well. And they've obviously got this special kit as well that they've got for today's ride. Group B, just to run through the groups that we have on the road, that started off at 2 minutes past 10. That's Ben Cornish, Bledin Mon and Luke Parkinson. And then in Group C, we have the main man himself, Sir Ben Ainslie, of course, the 4 times Olympic gold medalist. He's there in his lounge at the top of my screen. It looks like he's got a bit of a sweat on already, doesn't it, Shirley? It looks like he's actually taking this relatively seriously.
Well, if you know anything about Ben Ainslie, he's not going to take it. He's not going to take it lightly. You're hoping to do well here, Ben? Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll talk to him a little bit later. Can you hear us, Ben? Pointing at the screen. I think we're going to get Hi, Ben. Ben, we've only just started, and you're looking very sweaty. I guess you're taking it quite seriously.
Well, I'm just trying to keep up with everybody else. I've got Ian Percy. He was leading the group for a bit. Rob Wilson, who's my coach, our coach at the team, you know, can't let him beat me and the rest of us. So we've got a bit on, really. I just wanted to say a big thanks to, you mentioned the guys at INEOS Cycling and the team at Zwift for helping us get this going. It means a lot to all of us to have so much support for the big man Bart and his foundation.
Ben, you're founder of the foundation. Just tell us a little bit about why it's so important to you, and you know what work they do.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, you know, very generous opening comments, but really, it was Ian and Leah, Andrew's wife, who were the force behind getting the foundation going, and a few of us came in behind to support. And Richard, Ian's brother, now is the CEO. So it's really become a family affair. You know, the team, a lot of Bart's great mates in the background supporting the foundation. I think the support that it's had over the last 6 years or so is just, a measure of the man himself. So had some great achievements so far, but still a lot to do. And still, of course, a very challenging environment that we're all living in the moment. And charities, of course, really suffering in terms of that lost income revenue. So anything we can do, any support you can give to the foundation will be massively appreciated.
Well, Ben, we'll talk more about the foundation as the ride progresses.
Okay.
But let's chat. It's hard work, isn't it, talking and cycling? Let's talk a little bit about your cycling. I mean, you do get out on the roads a lot. I mean, how much are you on the bike? And actually, I've got a couple of cycling questions as well that we'll get to.
Well, I don't get on the bike as much as I should, really, but there's a few of us. You mentioned Giles. Between the grinding and the bike, he's one of our biggest cyclists. Actually, Lee McMillan and myself spend a lot of time on the bike because we're one of the few crew members that are supposed to be keeping our weight down. So, of course, cycling's great for that. But I end up getting pulled in quite a few different directions. So lockdown was good in terms of getting more time out on the road. But since lockdown has eased off, it's been hard to keep that consistency of training going. But like everybody else, I love getting out on the road, particularly around the Isle of Wight here. As you know, Shells, there's some beautiful lanes and great cycling to be done.
All right, Ben, we'll talk to you later and let you get back to concentrating on the job in hand. Thanks.
Thanks very much indeed, Ben. Well, I think it's worthwhile, just off the back of that little chat with Ben, we will be chatting to him a little bit later. Hopefully he can get some more ventilation in there. It doesn't look like he has a fan. He's constantly mopping his brow. Hopefully there's plenty of drinks on hand for Ben there. But let's have a look at a little video in relation to the Andrew Simpson Foundation and how the money raised can make so much difference to the young people that it's looking after.
I look at kids growing up nowadays and there's so many opportunities to do so many different things, but the easiest thing is to do nothing and get sucked into that screen generation.
It's good for exercising yourself and overcoming your fears.
Learning so many things and working within a group to make young people come out of themselves and have a really, really fun day.
And you've got this feeling of power and confidence and something that you can master.
Actually, you're not far off now.
3 years ago, Alfie was a different person. His behaviour was bad. He had got himself into lots of trouble. He'd been bullied. His self-belief was so low.
It makes me feel like I'm a new person. Other people see my actual other side of me.
Give them an aspiration on other ideas that they could do in life, not just the normal jobs that we tend to give young people.
Coming here for him has been one of the biggest changes that I've seen in a student. His whole attitude to school has changed, and he's even thinking of a career in the Navy now.
Personally, I can't say thank you enough.
You really have to bond quite quickly as a team, so they have to learn their team working skills to work together. Being on the water, learning about the wind, the waves, the sea, it's really good for them. So we're hoping by giving students more opportunities on the water that they'll have a bit more of a chance to apply for those jobs.
You know, when you quickly and visibly see what taking a child on the water can do to their life, you see them change in front of your eyes. I think it changes something in us as well and makes us feel part of something, but also just get a real sense of satisfaction of knowing that you've changed the life of someone, not just that day, but for the rest of their lives.
Well, what a wonderful little glimpse and insight there, Shirley, into the difference that the foundation made. And I think the key sentence from me from that little video was from Ian, who said that you can see the kids change in front of your eyes, and because there is something really, really magical about water, it draws us. It's something kind of almost spiritual about it. But what a lovely way of summing up how important it is and the difference it can make to young kids' lives.
You know, I can remember my own first experience sailing off on a boat on my own, aged about 7 or 8. And, you know, you can't drive a car, you can't even really cycle anywhere by yourself. But this amazing sense of freedom and confidence. And I mean, that just grows and grows with time on the water. It's a special thing. And Bart knew that. And I guess, we know that too. And the foundation is trying to keep that going.
No, it does. It looks exceptional, and to see those kids smiling and building their confidence. And I think another key element of being in a group is the importance of teamwork, isn't it? And bonding as a group, which is something that is a key important skill, especially if you're growing up, especially if you've grown up in quite difficult circumstances as well.
Yeah, you need to be resourceful, and you need to be able to communicate with the people you're sailing with and communicate well, and all those kind of life skills that we all need. So, you know, the sailing environment can give you that for sure.
Well, talking of riding in a group, talking of teamwork, look at this. This is the group. This is one of the groups on the road. containing Ben Cornish. This is group number 2. They've just come out of the underpass. Now, very cleverly in-game in Zwift, they've actually shortened the distance between the centre of London and the Surrey Hills. So we have this little section here running through the underground, and rather than riding on the tube tracks, which would be very dangerous. There's a danger that the riders could be electrocuted. They've actually put planks of wood over the top, thankfully, to give us this little short route that links the Surrey Hills to the centre of London. And this is the group with Ben Cornish. And I tell you what, they are moving at a pace here. Just at the top of the top right of the screen, that is the topography, that is the elevation. This is a relatively flat route. That is where they are on the road. And the top of your screen there, you've got the speed on the left-hand side, the elapsed distance, so they've just done 22.6 Ks. So they'll be heading through and nearly completing one lap already in 33 minutes. And there's their elevation as well, 108 meters of elevation. And I think they're moving very, very quickly here. So they're certainly not racing at the moment, but I sense there could be a little bit of competition here as we head towards the back of this event.
Matt, I've got to ask about the shiny wheels. For those of us watching who are new to this, just to explain how you get a pair of them.
Well, that's known as a very, very special bike in game. It's a very special achievement. It's got a nickname as the Tron bike, and as you can see, it's the most efficient bike that you can ride on Zwift, and you have to earn it by climbing the amount. Well, I think it's 50,000 meters. You have to climb Everest in terms of elevation gain. So a lot of uphill climbing. So basically, elevation gained. Once you've reached that particular point, you are rewarded with one of these rather shiny bicycles, and they are very, very sought after indeed, and can give you that little bit of an advantage. And of course, the wonderful thing about Zwift is the gamification side of it. You can go to your garage. The more that you ride on Zwift, the more that you can unlock in terms of equipment and bikes. You can see different sorts of frames being used here, different sorts of wheel rim depths. Generally, a deeper rim means it's more aerodynamically efficient, especially on a flatter to more undulating roads. But as you can see, Ben Ainslie there has gone for quite a traditional setup. Looks like he's got a regular steel frame with shallow rims, so quite an old school setup there for Ben. But again, he is quite new to Zwift. I believe he's only level 1, but moving very, very nicely at 3.2 watts a kilo with 22 kilometres under his wheels, heading into Surrey, Shirley, for the first time.
Ben is one of the fiercest competitors I know. Whatever he's doing, he wants to win, and I'm sure he's been getting in some sneaky rides in preparation for today. But never underestimate Ben Ainslie.
Indeed. Well, we've got a few questions coming in here, Shirley. You can actually head over to the INEOS Team UK Facebook page and Ben Ainslie's Facebook page to fire some questions, and we're getting them through here. Jamie Wayne, we'll ask Ben this in a minute. Jamie Wayne wants to be wished happy birthday. I'll wish him it. Happy birthday, Jamie. And another question here from Lucy Goff. How does your AC boat compare to other teams? I think that's going to be one for Ben as well. But please keep your questions coming in. And somebody else has asked, what's the average watts for a 50-kilometre ride? Well, we won't know until the end of the ride, but I can tell you what, there's some pretty respectable wattages being pushed out at the moment by everybody on course. And there we go, head over to facebook.com/Ben Ainslie 1977. And that little bit of the course that Ben's just ridden up there, that is very, very steep indeed. It's about a 13% gradient, and the rider's almost grinding to a halt. And it looks as if Ben here, for the first time, Shirley, has actually been distanced from the group. He's got a bit of work to do to get back in the wheels.
Yeah, he's been left behind, hasn't he, going up that incline. It would be interesting to see just how sweaty he is when we see him again. Oh, he's getting back in it though, Matt.
Look at that, straight back in the mix, as you said. A fierce competitor. There's no way he was going to be let behind, and here he is in all of his glory. Let's have a little bit of a chat with Ben. We had a bit of a chat earlier on, but I think we should drop in again just to see how he's doing. He's looking rather shiny, but surely his hair game is strong, isn't it? A strong hair game, which is encouraging.
You're always looking good. Ben, we saw you just drop back there at the start of that incline. How are you finding it?
I'm struggling. Yeah, it's hard work. I'm a bit above my what I'd normally be doing, so I don't know if I'll be able to hang on to this group or not. I'll try.
Well, I'm just about to make your life a little bit harder because lots of people have been sending questions for you. Here's a tough one. It's from Lucy Goff, and she asked, how does your AC boat compare to other teams? Try and answer that in a couple of sentences.
Hi, Lucy. Yeah, it's quite different. I think you've seen the New Zealand and Italian boats are quite similar in design, and our boat and the American boat's a bit different. But we can build 2 boats, so it'll be fascinating to see how much the teams align when all the boats get on the water in New Zealand in 2 or 3 months' time.
Well, we can't wait for that moment. Everyone's desperate to know who's got the best boat. Here's a question, Ben, from Ben Coulson. A cycling question. Who is your favourite cyclist of all time? Your cycling hero?
Whoa, good question. So many. I guess I've got to go for Bradley Wiggins first. Well, Tour de France, an Olympic gold medal in the same summer, and plenty of style to go with it. So, yeah, I'll go with that. I can't remember. Yeah, it's impressive for a skinny lad. Yeah.
Well, you're hearing there from Ian Percy. Maybe we can have a quick chat with Ian. Ian, it looks very dramatic, your background. Tell everyone where you are and how you're doing.
Going to work this morning. Got to meet someone in a bit. Very sweaty, it would appear. So we're in our simulator room at the office in London, which is good because we're going around London. But yeah, it's the first time I've cycled in about 5 years. I'm not going to be able to walk after this.
You're going well. I can't keep up with you.
Mate, about to pass down.
Ian, tell us a little bit about where you are, because we had a look before we came on air but can you just explain to those watching exactly where you are situated with this Artemis Technologies screen that you've got wrapped around you? Where exactly are you?
We're in a simulator room, which is most of the modern America's Cup teams would have, which is a little bit like we're doing here on Swift. It's a simulation of the real thing that runs in real time, a bit like this. And ours was for the last America's Cup, and we've subsequently converted it to be used for commercial vessels, where we're developing zero emissions solutions for maritime, using some of the same technology, hence the need for the simulator here. Don't make me talk too much. Can't breathe.
Ask her another question, Shirley. Go on, one more.
Yeah, keep on.
Just take me down.
Keep going.
Maybe we'll go to Ben. We'll just follow up on the simulator.
No.
Yes.
I mean, how big a deal is it in the America's Cup world? It's not often that the layman gets to see in a room like that. How important is it, Ben, to trying to win the cup?
Oh, big deal. Right, let's get on with it. No, it's important. Like Ian says, we used to rely on tank models and wind tunnels in the good old days, and now it's all done on computer simulation and modelling. It's really impressive.
All right, well, we'll catch up with both of you a little bit later, but let's see how you're getting on the track.
Thanks very much. Well, great to see the guys looking so well. I'm surprised, actually, Shirley, how well that Ian is riding, considering it's the first time he's been on a bike in such a long time, but he's coping pretty well.
Well, Ian Percy is ever self-deprecating, but I know he has been running a lot. In the last Cup, he was head of the Artemis America's Cup team and very much part of the team on the grinders the whole time. He's fit and he's competitive, and he's in the same group as Ben Ainslie, so he won't want to let himself down for sure.
I mean, obviously, Shirley, it's been a difficult time for everybody. Whatever you do in life, it's been particularly tough. But what will these sailors have been doing during lockdown to keep themselves fit? Obviously, not everybody has access to a simulator like the one we've seen Ian riding within there. So how typically would sailors be keeping themselves fit and most physically and kind of mentally and in tune with what they need to do?
Well, in the cup setting, life kind of carried on. They couldn't go sailing, obviously, because it's impossible to social distance, really. But the fitness carried on, the designers carried on designing. Ben might tell us more in a bit, but they carried on using the simulator. So just try as they could. They kept it all rolling. They may not have been in the gym together, but the grinders, certainly, they all had machines at home, and I guess connected and raced each other through a platform like this. I mean, I think they were actually using Swift, and maybe they'll tell us about that.
Well, this is the group on the road containing Giles Scott. And I must admit, he's looking at the wattage on the top left there. It was hovering at around 300 watts. That is very, very respectable indeed. And unsurprisingly, Shirley, they are well into lap number 2. I think they're going to finish a little bit earlier than we thought, but this just shows the kind of level of fitness. You wouldn't ordinarily have thought that people sat on a boat would need to be that physically fit, but clearly there are so many parallels. And it's worth mentioning as well, isn't it, that also on the ride in Group C is Stephen Park OBE, the British Cycling Performance Director, who previously was the Performance Director of British Sailing as well. So there are lots and lots of parallels, aren't there?
For sure, and a lot of sailors love the bike. We're just seeing actually Giles Scott in your screen, who was right up the front of that group. He should have been in Tokyo defending his gold medal, and so absolutely at the top of his game and as fit as he could be. He's ready to go and taking today very seriously.
He certainly is. And this is, of course, this is a picture of one of the grinders. The grinding team, just for the record, Chris Brittle, Graham Spence, Neil Hunter and Tim Carter, all part of the Team INEOS UK grind. On board, please explain exactly what they do and how important they are.
The grinders provide the power to help you adjust the sails and adjust the foils. So they're absolutely crucial. If Ben Ainslie wants to do 20 tacks up the first leg, they need to provide the power to do that. And the more power he has, the more he can do. So absolutely crucial. We just saw Luke Parkinson, and now this is Graham Spence, another Aussie. He's rather fetching headband. They're really, really powerful guys. It's like cycling with your arms. They do, and now in their training, they're doing about between 12 and 15 hours a week, not including actually having to grind in the boat when the team's out training. But they're certainly putting in the hours on this machine.
That is absolutely impressive. I mean, the effort equally as impressive as the moustache and headband combination there from Graham Spence. Look at that remarkably heavy tyre in the background there. These guys are obviously exceptionally strong, and when you think about the amount of power that these guys are generating through their arms, I mean, a lot of people surely would struggle to generate that amount of power through their legs, which in terms of muscle mass generally is a lot bigger. It just puts it into perspective how fit these guys are, because the very success of the team is essentially reliant on the energy that these guys are able to create.
That's very true. I mean, you're more used to looking at the data than I am. I mean, how comparable is what we're seeing from the grinders to the top cyclists?
Very, very comparable. I mean, apparently these guys can sustain around 300 watts, which in terms of a functional threshold power would put them in the exceptionally fit category. But when you look at the amount of maximum power they can generate, some of the numbers that we've seen around 1900 watts. That's more power than most road sprinters could put out. For example, Mark Cavendish could probably put out 1500 watts. Some of the heavier sprinters, 1800s. And Chris Hoy was putting over just over 2,000 watts in one of his sprints on the velodrome. So these are somewhere in between. The amount of max power they can put out is somewhere in between a road rider and a track rider, but superior, in fact, to what we see out on the road, which has actually blown my mind, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, we can see Luke Parkinson there on the screen, he's checking his phone and turning the handles. An incredible athlete. He was with Ian Percy in the last America's Cup and Artemis Racing. He's won the Volvo Ocean Race. There we go. I don't know if he's texting his girlfriend or he's answering questions on his Facebook page, but a real asset on board and an incredible athlete.
No, certainly very, very fit indeed there. As you can just see one of his teammates there. just making sure, but probably checking social media, because when you look at the angle that they've gone for in terms of the camera, they've really thought this through, haven't they? Maximum social media exposure there.
We're seeing a rare glimpse actually into the gym at their HQ in Portsmouth Old Town. It looks pretty functional. It's like a good gym. I mean, interesting to point out also that there's an amazing amount of shared knowledge between all the INEOS teams, between the cycling team and also the Formula One team. So, you know, it's helped a lot. I know it's helped a lot in terms of performance and just sort of upping the level and the game of the sailors in the team.
No, there are many parallels in elite sport, not just from a physical perspective, but the trickle down from the technology point of view. And earlier on, we saw, of course, Ian inside that virtual what would you call it? It's a virtual boat. That's basically, apparently, well, Ian was on air earlier on talking about the location that the boat is situated in, and it's Looe Harbour, isn't it? I believe in Cornwall. That's where they're basically situated. But that piece of kit, I mean, is quite incredible, isn't it? It really is cutting edge and state of the art. That means they can sail basically 365 days a year, regardless of the conditions.
Well, it's actually in an industrial estate in Slough. But to shatter your illusions. But yes, when you're sailing, you're in a harbour in Looe, and I've had to go myself. It's absolutely impossible. It's really, really difficult. Everything happens so quickly, and obviously the boat's on foils. It lifts out the water, so there's a real kind of 3D aspect to it. For normal sailors, people who are used to sailing slowly in the water, like myself, it takes a bit of getting used to. But it is important not just to hone the skills of the sailors, but also for the design teams as well. I mean, in essence, they can try out how saleable different bits of equipment are, in the simulator first, before, I guess, either spending a ton of money making things or wasting valuable training time on the water.
Yeah, indeed, it's all about optimization, isn't it? As we see Ben Scott there, or Giles Scott, should I say, a gold medalist in 2016 in Rio. A couple of the other Tron bikes. Technically, the nickname for these rather special bikes on Zwift is a Tron bike, but actually they're formally known as a Concept Z1. And you have to climb more than Everest. I just did my little bit of research. I should have known that. You actually have to climb 50,000 meters of elevation. So I think Everest is about 8,000 meters high. So yeah, you have to seriously do some multiple Everest before you can attain one of these bikes. And as I said, they are quite rare, thoroughly sought after. So there you go. Every rider in picture who's got one of those Concept Z1s has climbed the equivalent of 50,000 meters elevation, which might even be through the atmosphere and heading towards the moon, I think, Shirley.
I guess if you're surrounded by shiny wheels, you're doing pretty well. You're in good shape. It's a good indicator.
It certainly is. And of course, the riders midway through, we talk about the virtual sailing world, and Zwift, of course, is a virtual cycling platform. There are multiple worlds that you can ride within, and the world that we have chosen for this particular ride, raising money, of course, for eBike4Bart, this once-a-year event to raise money for the Andrew Simpson Foundation. They're choosing the streets of London and the Surrey lanes as well. We go through Richmond Park, but mercifully for these riders today, they won't have to do anything near Everesting. It's more taking on the sights and sounds of the City of London. And look at this. Normally people ride on Zwift as a training aid or to ride in bad weather, and you're not going to believe this, Shirley. It's actually raining in-game at the moment.
Someone has a sense of humour, don't they? That's funny.
They're certainly pouring down with rain on the streets of London. Dark skies here for the group containing Cornish. This is Group 2 on the road. 34 kilometres under the wheels and still moving along at a pace. They can just see the top left there, 42 kilometres an hour. That's a shade over 25 miles an hour and 237 watts. That is a very, very respectable pace. You can just see there, just below the watts there, you can see 85 RPM. That's revolutions per minute. That's how many revolutions you're actually pedalling. Or if you're a grinder, how many you're not pedalling. What's the phrase actually for pedalling as a grinder? Do they call it something different, Shirley?
Well, it's grinding, which is a
Just
terrible
grinding.
name, isn't it? It's a terrible name.
Okay. We're now going to throw to another VT called Back on Home Waters. Hope you enjoy this.
It's been a tough period for the team, as it has been for everybody. For us now to be back on the water is a really big deal. It means we can keep our development going. Obviously that's crucial looking ahead to Auckland next year. And for the team, you know, there's a real positive vibe that comes from being out in the water, what we're supposed to be doing. So good day.
Well, there we go. A little bit of an insight there into what Team INEOS UK are doing. Planning, of course, surely towards the America's Cup. And it may be worth, I think, it's having another bit of a chat with the man himself, just about what his aims and ambitions are going forward after what's been quite a difficult time for everybody. Let's get Ben back on. Just see, we just got the grinders at the moment, but Ben's back on.
Hiya.
Hi Ben. We just saw a lovely VT when you got the boat back in the water. I mean, how difficult was it trying to prepare for the America's Cup and losing so much time? And I guess, you know, how much back on track do you feel?
Yeah, it has been difficult. It's been difficult for all of the teams, and you know, we talk about our world in sport, but of course, been just so many challenges all around the world. But in our world, yeah, we were training in Sardinia, getting ready for the race there. Had to come back to Portsmouth and regroup, really. And we talked about the simulator, how critical that is, and that really came into its own through those 2 or 3 months of lockdown. And now, yeah, been back on the water for a couple of months now, had some really good time there, developing our first boat, and then making sure we get our second boat built and delivered to New Zealand on time.
Well, there's really not long to go. Just give us a short indication, really, of what the next few months look like. What's the landscape, the run-in to the Cup itself?
Yeah, so we finish up sailing here. We start shipping all the equipment to New Zealand. We've got to do 2 weeks of quarantine in New Zealand. Can't really get around that. And then we'll have a couple of months in New Zealand getting ready for the Christmas race, end of December. And that'll be the first time that all of the teams are lined up together. And that'll be a key moment. And then not long after that, we're into the Challenger Series. So time is short.
Well, we can't wait for it to happen. But make sure to take your bike for your quarantine in New Zealand, and plenty of Netflix. Keep pedaling, Ben. We'll talk to you later.
Cheers.
Cheers, Ben. I tell you what, Shirley, it's a real measure, isn't it, of somebody's fitness, that they're able to talk pretty well and still put out around 200 watts. He's definitely doing well, isn't he? He's a very, very fit, determined man with, but again, so competitive, and a lot on the menu for him over the coming months.
He's so competitive. Whatever he does, he's very, very competitive, and he was playing down, I guess, how much he rides as well. But I know as soon as we were allowed to ride in lockdown, he was out round the Isle of Wight riding outside. So he's fitter and more bike ready than he's letting on.
I mean, again, before we came on air, we were talking, and I was learning a lot. I'm obviously aware of sailing. I'm fully aware of Ben, but in terms of the minutiae, the detail about sailing, I'm a complete utter newbie. And we were talking about the America's Cup in relation to what the benefits are of winning it. So talk to us a little bit about the way the America's Cup works, because it's quite special, because the winner gets to do something that you never see in any other sport.
Well, I guess if you're looking at it from outside the world of sailing, it's a real anomaly. But in many ways, this is what makes it special. If your team wins it, you get to decide more or less everything. You know, where it's going to be, what the boats are going to be like, what the format is. So in some ways, it's difficult for the sport, because you know everything can change. There's no sort of nothing just builds from the year before, like in most big events, but in other ways. And for me, as a broadcaster, it's fascinating. It's full of intrigue. Everything's always changing. It's a real design race. I mean, the designers, if you don't risk enough, you don't push the design boundaries, you will not win the race. But push too much, and it's all over. So it's not just a collection of the world's very best sailors, but it's the whole thing. It's arriving at a set date, having won the design challenge as well as winning the sailing challenge. So it's properly fascinating. For those who are watching, who are perhaps not as au fait with sailing, watch it on the television. It will be free to air. The actual cup itself is in March, but as Ben just said, we will see for the first time the 4 teams lining up with their machines in December. There obviously hasn't been any racing this year, so it really will be an amazing moment when we see them all together.
It's a very interesting coming together of cutting edge technology, fitness, the way a team gels together. I mean, how much kind of work out on the water will a team have? Is a lot of it, obviously a lot of it is on land, but how many opportunities are there to actually get on the rig and actually test it to its full capacity?
Well, and that's a good point, Matt, because it is quite limited, and it's quite an effort to go sailing. I mean, I think it involves perhaps 50 or 60 people to get the machine on the water, get all the data back, to keep it all up and running. But sailing time is vital. It's vital for the sailors, obviously, but also for the designers, just to get real data, not just data from the simulator. But you're right. I guess when you speak to the sailors, they do a lot less actual sailing than they would conventional sailing, but every minute they do is absolutely vital to the process, not just to be a slick team, but to arrive with the best machine, to keep evolving the technology, even during the cup, working out daily, feeding back the data and making improvements on a daily basis. So it's exciting if you're a bit nerdy and you're into data and technology and all of that. It's an absolute fascinating event.
Well, again, we talk about data technology. I think any of us involved in sport, especially in the 21st century now, who have access to platforms like Zwift, I think the nerdy thing is actually quite exciting. It's a way of kind of monitoring fitness, and also a way of bringing people together. I think that's the wonderful thing about Zwift here, especially during these very difficult times, is that we've got this platform that has brought together all these people from all over the place, basically riding in this virtual world, able to communicate with each other. As we look at Matt Gottrell there, Matt is one of the riders from Group A there, looking pretty cool actually. Looks like he's got a good style. Looks like he's got his road bike on his turbo there, looking pretty composed.
Matt Gottrell won a gold medal in the Rio Games, but not for sailing, for rowing. He was one of the 8. His nickname is Shrek. Okay. A massively powerful unit, but also a good sailor. I mean, he grew up sailing, was part of the youth development squads before he chose rowing. But he's a real machine. I don't know why he's called Shrek.
Well, he is a machine, and we're going to look at some more machines as well. We're going to have a little look at the grinders and talk about, we touched on the importance of the grinders within a team, how they generate the power to actually maneuver the boat through the water. They are an absolutely pivotal, vital point. We should get a picture of the grinders again, picture in picture. Just a reminder of the team, they're in Group C. They're out on the road, moving at the same speed as the cyclists, which I still find quite incredible. Chris Brittle, Graham Spence, Neil Hunter and Tim Carter. And any of you watching who knows a little bit about Zwift, a little bit about cycling, the amount of power they can generate, they are at the moment putting out between 250 and 300 watts, which is mightily impressive. This is Tim Carter. And I mean, how much, and we talked a little bit earlier on, Shirley, about the kind of work they do. So primarily, they just have to keep the fittest of all of the team, really. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah. By a mile. I mean, the boat's full of athletes, but yeah, I mean, they're generating the power that the boat needs to to make any adjustments or to do manoeuvres. So they are so fit. And actually, Tim Carter, who we're looking at now, for Sports Relief, he did this for 24 hours.
Oh my God!
Which is quite something.
That's astonishing. I mean, riding a bike for that long is hard enough, but the bottom line is, Shirley, on a bike you sat down. Blimey! I mean, you sat down pedaling. I mean, but actually stood up. I mean, that must really take its toll on the back as well as the arms, because to me that looks a little bit like too much hard work.
Yeah, but at least you don't get a sore bottom, Matt. So
there
is some pluses. Yeah.
There's some small modes. I mean, just to go through some stats again, some grinding facts for you. There has been a maximum power recorded, so an explosive sprint-like effort on grinding of 1,916 watts. That was recorded during training. The average sustained power is 300 watts, which in terms of functional threshold power for any cyclist is exceptionally good. The average crew weight is 90 kilograms, so they are heavier, musclier individuals, far heavier than your average professional cyclist, which kind of, I guess your average pro cyclist would weigh between 65 and 72 kilograms. And the heart rate during a 20-minute race, 88% of maximum. So basically, that's kind of riding or performing at threshold. And the average kilocalories consumed by a sailor in a week, Shirley, get this, 42,000. And they will take on 35 plus litres of SAS fuel on average drunk per week per sailor. So they're putting out a lot of energy, so they've got to take a lot of stuff in as well.
It's interesting to hear the data. I mean, Matt, at the last America's Cup in Bermuda in 2017, the winning team, the New Zealand team, actually installed bikes into the cockpit of the boat. It was a loophole, I guess, in the rules. And I mean, and I suppose we would think, obviously, your legs are a bigger muscle than your arms, are more efficient. They did go on to win. Whether it was the deciding factor, we don't really know. But it's interesting now, in the space of 3 years, I guess bikes aren't allowed, so there's been much more focus on refining the athletes, the grinders, and it's interesting to hear the stats, because actually they're not far off. They're not far off what it would be on a bike.
No, not far off at all. Well, there's Ian Percy, just midway through this group. Let's have another chat with Ian, just in the centre of that Artemis simulator. There's it. How's it going, Ian? You're riding no-handed. You're breezing along, my friend.
I'm hurting. I like that about the whole turbo trainers. You don't need to have any balance. That was always one of my weaknesses. No, it's hard. I'm 175 beats a minute here. This is not a cruise in the afternoon. And I'm an old man, so that's a lot.
How's it been in the group? Has it been? Oh, sorry, Shirley. How's it been in the group? Has it been quite competitive?
Wait, you just don't want to get dropped, because then it gets a little harder, which is quite cool the way it works. So I think by accident we're all not trying to get dropped, and the pace is going beyond all of us old blokes. But we're in the tunnel now. We're almost home, aren't we?
Not far to go.
Remember this.
Well, great stuff, Ian. We won't keep you any longer, but you are looking for, all things considered, Shirley, for his first ride. I know he's probably playing his cards a little bit close to his chest. He's clearly a very fit man, but clearly is understanding the nuances within Zwift, because riding in real life, when you sit behind another rider, you get the benefit of a slipstream, and also like in sailing as well. If you're sailing in the wake of another boat, I understand there's benefits to have, because water moves in a similar way than air, doesn't it? So there's nuance in game. There is a benefit to sitting in the slipstream of another, and it's good to see that Ian is actually kind of finding his feet, as it were, within the game.
Well, they're all the sailors we spoke to. They're real technical sailors, and you can't not be, working in the America's Cup world. You have to understand flow and aerodynamics and hydrodynamics, and I mean you got to be smart now. It's not enough just to be a good sailor. But interesting with Ian, I have a podcast, and I interviewed him for the podcast, and he said, "Why would you speak to me? I don't even sail anymore." But 2 months before, he'd been at an event, a sort of champion of champions event, and absolutely wiped the floor with everyone, having not sailed for over a year. But he's a really special, natural sailor and so self-deprecating that it's a pleasure to be around.
And if anybody wants to tune into that podcast, Shirley, what's it called?
Shirley Robertson's Sailing Podcast. So
there we go.
It's easy to find. It's easy to find. And thanks for the not very subtle plug, Matt. But it's I guess I've been around the Olympic world for a long time, and then working in all areas of sailing, and so I'm trusted by the sailors. So it's a real insight, an in-depth chat with some of the biggest stars around the globe of our sport. So if you haven't listened to it, it's really worth having a listen. Ben Ainslie's there a little bit earlier in the year, Ian Percy, and actually Ian Percy, he won his gold and silver medal with Bart, with Andrew Simpson, and he talks about that whole period in his life, the joys and obviously the devastation, and it's not really about sport, it's about friendship and loss, and it's a compelling listen. So I hope everyone enjoys it.
No, it does sound great. Head over there, have a little listen. And just off the back of that point, Shirley, it's just worth reminding people, this is all about raising money for the Andrew Simpson Foundation. Normally we have Bike4Bart. This is eBike4Bart. We're on the Zwift platform, and it is Ben Ainslie who's brought everybody together. And there he is, picture in picture. You can just see he's moving along just under 200 watts. And just looking at his body language, it suggests to me that the 4-time Olympic gold medalist is starting to suffer. We're heading into the last 7 kilometers of this event. Ben, how are you feeling? Hope?
Oh, struggling. I'm not good. It's about 11k to go, but I'm struggling to hang on to the group in front of me. So, just say I keep going, keep pushing. Ooh.
Matt, you were a pro cyclist. Have you got any tips for him to get him to the finish line?
Well, looking at the moment where he is, he's sadly lost the wheel, and we heard Ian earlier on saying that once he'd lost the wheel, it's harder to cut through the air. So Ben is experiencing now riding on his own without the benefit of sitting in the slipstream. He's on a climb of about 4%. He's in Richmond Park, which is just down the road from me, actually. I'm here in Hampton Court. So I feel like getting on my bike and riding over and maybe giving him a bit of a tow. But look at this. He's not giving up. Still under 200 watts. He's actually caught another rider now. And one thing we know though for sure, Shirley, is that this man will not give up, whatever. And look at this, he's managing to nudge just over 200 watts here. I think you've got 44 k's under the wheel there, Ben. I think you've got about 6 or 7 kilometers to go. So keep going, mate. Keep going.
Roger.
I think, Shirley, it's a little bit unfair of us to ask him any more questions, because that's almost cruel, isn't it?
That is cruel. He's still listening. we don't want to see that, but Ben Ainslie is the greatest Olympic sailor of all time, Matt. 4 golds and a silver. And I remember covering the Olympics in London where he won his final gold, and really kind of struggling at issues with his back, and it was all very tough. And the Danish sailor was really properly challenging him. One day made him angry out in the water, and Ben came in and said, "You don't want to make me angry." And it was just the trigger to find a whole new level, and from there, won his gold medal and became the greatest sailor of all time. So one of those athletes that when you fire him up, he's absolutely unstoppable.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. And we just saw Ben actually communicating, and this is one of the added kind of features of riding on Zwift. You can ride with the people from all over the world, and you can actually message in game as well. And given that Ben is the ride leader with that with the little golden thing just spinning above his head, you can actually communicate with the other riders. And when you're a ride leader in any group ride like this, you can actually have a chat with people and tell them to slow down. And I think what we saw there, Shirley, was him asking for the rest of the group maybe to slow down a little bit so they can regroup and finish together as a team, which would be nice, wouldn't it?
I ride, I outside rides, and one of the things I love about it is, going out with mates and the community element of cycling, and I'm stopping for a coffee, I have to admit that. But it's great that it is a community, that it is very social on Zwift, and you could keep that joy of the sport going, even if you're not outside.
Indeed. Well, the lead group on the road are heading into the streets of London again. So they are going to be not very far at all from the finish. So they have gone around this circuit, the 50Ks, very, very quickly indeed, still putting out around 250 watts. And that is Matt Gottrell that we're seeing on the centre of your screen here. Very, very respectable speeds. It won't be, they're just going over London Bridge now. They'll be swinging left and heading back in a westerly direction, parallel with the River Thames. And this group won't be very long. I think they've got around 3 kilometres to go, but I'm very, very, not so much surprised, Shirley, but impressed at the level of fitness. But also, just a quick word from you, Shirley, seeing some of the finest sailors in the world coming together on Zwift. I mean, what's your perception of this? It's quite wonderful, isn't it? So it's bringing people from a different sport together on this virtual platform.
I'm loving it. It looks fantastic as well. You can actually sort of see the landmarks and where you are, and you can communicate with the other riders. And I mean, as I was saying, it's got an element of the joy of riding with and against your mates, but virtually. It's very, very impressive. And I too, I'm very impressed by the level of fitness of some of the sailors. I mean, I know they're nearly peaking, that the America's Cup and the Olympics would have been now, the America's Cup in a few months, but they're at the top of their fitness game, and it's great to see how that translates into the bike.
That certainly is. All very, very respectful indeed. And I think by the sound, the rasping sound that we're getting through our headsets, I think that Ben might have his mic open, gasping in the gulps of air. It's fine, but it actually adds a real kind of rich texture to the narrative of today's event. Hearing a 4-time Olympic gold medalist go as deep as he is, well, it's almost like we're there, Shirley.
I mean, they said it wasn't going to be a race. It was a sort of ride, a sporty for a ride in company. But hearing that gasping, I'm slightly worried about Ben.
I think he's got some adult. I think he's got some adult supervision on hand, thankfully. But the finish line won't be too long. He's just going through that underpass again, through the tube, up that nasty steep little climb, which is the steepest part of this particular circuit. And then it will just be a few. Well, he's out of the underground now, back onto the streets of London, and only about 4 kilometres to go. This has been tremendous. We're going to probably be on air for just another 5 or sort of 6 minutes. And please do urge you to head over to the Bike4Bart webpage and make a donation. If you don't even make a donation, just have a little bit of a read about the good that this foundation is doing. The Andrew Simpson Foundation, of course, which was founded by Ben Ainslie in memory of Andrew Bart Simpson. And it's, I said, the more money that can be raised, Shirley, the more differences that can be made to young people's lives.
Yeah, and it's not a lot of money. I think I said in the beginning of the transmission, £70, 2 kids get to go sailing. They get to be introduced to what could be a lifetime's passion, and to just in some way kind of build their confidence. And they have centres along the south coast. There's just about to be one in Birmingham, so if you're in that area, look out for it. I'm not sure when it's open, but I think pretty soon. They have one in Lake Garda, which is amazing, and they have all the best, all the training foiling boats there. My son's been raved about it, best week of his life. So great instructors, a good ethos. They're not kind of. My son came back and said, they weren't like shouty instructors. They were really nice, and I think that's the ethos of it. Is learn the sport and be introduced to the sport in a really relaxed manner. So. Yeah, they do great work in a good way, and the sailing community is very much behind it.
That's absolutely fantastic. And what a way to raise money as well. Riding here on Zwift, on the virtual platform, all of the riders from, of course, Team INEOS UK coming together on bicycles, albeit virtual ones. We've got the grinders as well, grinding away. And I did see a couple of messages in game there, Shirley, suggesting we could see a little flurry of attacks and maybe a little bit of a final push to the line. I think somebody said, when are we going to see some attacks? And attacks in cycling parlance means basically zipping off up the road. And it's not going to be too long before we cross the finish line under Heartleg. 2 kilometres to go. There we go. Pull the pin. There we go. So that to me, Shirley, suggests we are going to see a bit of a final flurry.
Oh, I'm excited. This is the best bit of the race. I'm excited to see this. Who's going to be the top sailor? It's going to be good.
Yeah, who's going to get bragging rights amongst the team? We are going to see, no doubt, the watts just start to lift up a little bit. Yeah, 245 watts. Yeah, the speed starting to increase. We're just moving along in a westerly direction, heading away from the city of London now. We've been over London Bridge. That was our entrance point into Surrey. We're now heading just along the banks of the Thames, heading towards Parliament, where we'll have the finish. So with the speed starting to increase here, Shirley, any tips for these riders? How do you think they should play it? Think they should just go hell for leather or play it a bit more tactically? What do you reckon?
Oh, well, you're the expert, Matt. But you know, I love it when they make a final push right at the very end and nip it on the finish line. So I'm hoping for a bit of drama and a little bit of jeopardy right on the finish line.
Great stuff. Well, I think what you're alluding to there is one of the classic bunch sprints, the kind of back end of the race that Mark Cavendish would revel in. This is a little right turn here, just heading up. This is a nasty little drag, actually. This is one of the small climbs on the circuit, just coming up to just having a look on the course. They'll swing left and then they'll enter the Mall, I believe, in just a few moments' time. So look at the speed here. Speed really starting to increase, 311 watts. This is where the power is really being dropped up this nasty little drag, but this group's still staying together, Shirley. The big question is, who is going to take the spoils at the end of the day? 51 kilometers an hour is the speed here. Very, very impressive. Over 30 miles an hour uphill.
Wow, you get a speeding ticket for that in the Mall. That is impressive speed. Looks great.
Well, here we go. They're just turning left. They're going under Admiralty Arch. You can just see Admiralty Arch. Well, that was just over to the right-hand side. They're just heading down. They'll be heading on to the Mall, just outside Buckingham Palace in a minute. This is part of the La Classique circuit. There are numerous circuits within the London world. The Classic circuit was used by the women in the Prudential Ride London Surrey Classic. So lots of different permutations that you can ride in-game as we get another little look at Sir Ben Ainslie there. Still tapping out 200 watts. He is not giving up at all. The stats that he's putting out, still very, very respectable indeed. And looking at the little picture-in-picture that I get, look at the study of concentration on his face. He's super focused, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think we should speak to him, Matt.
No, I don't think that's a very good idea.
I think we might make him angry, and we don't want to do that.
I don't think you'll get him as a guest again on your podcast if you ask him any more questions, to be honest with you, Shirley. But there he is again. Let's not speak to him. Let's just gaze at him there, still pounding away the pedals on his watt bike there. But even a little smile there. He's a consummate professional as well, isn't he? So just over 50 k's now. Some power-ups being used here. Power-ups are the gamification element. They actually help you in-game. If you get an aero power-up, they are awarded at random points throughout the course. That makes you more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. Very, very handy if you're going to do a sprint. A van power-up, well, that increases your draft by 50%. If you get a burrito, that makes you undraftable, so no rider can get into your slipstream for 10 seconds. If you get a featherweight power-up, that makes you lighter on the bike by 9.5 kilograms for 15 seconds. And surely, if you get an invisibility power-up, you actually turn invisible for the other riders in the game for 10 seconds. So you can actually make a sneaky little invisible attack as we look at the front group on the road here. So a couple of power-ups already been used, but nobody has stolen a march. It looks to me, Shirley, as if we're heading towards what you wanted, and that is a group sprint to the line.
Oh, I love the stealth mode. That is fantastic. That's a genius. In our box, we're looking at David Carr, Freddie, we call him, and he is a machine. And I spoke to him last night. He's taking today very seriously. He's been normally a grinder, but not grinding today. He is on the bike and has been getting in some rides, and he is pushing at the front. Very competitive between the INEOS sailors, and yeah, he's doing well.
Well, this is great. They're just going up they're on, as you can see, on the Mall there, the red surface, the red tarmac of the Mall. There's some big power being dropped, 350 watts. Bear in mind, they've already done 53 kilometers here. I don't know what that was, but a big attack here. We're just up this little bit of a drag. We should be crossing the finish line very, very shortly, but I don't know how much longer these riders can sustain this power. As we see Matt Gottrell move to the front. The man, of course, with the beacon, the ride leader, really laying down the watts. Impressive power as he head towards the back end of this race, Shirley. Wonderful stuff.
Goodness, there's a shiny wheels just overtaken him. That's not a good sign.
It's not the concept.
Saving himself right to the end.
He certainly is. We're just heading in towards the finish now. Look at the watts being dropped here. It's going to be very, very close. Of course, we have some riders from the community in the mix here as well, riding along with these stars of sailing, heading back down the mall again. This is a view a little bit further down now. One of the Concept Z1 bikes. Of course, awarded for any rider who's actually climbed the equivalent of 50,000 meters through the atmosphere. But as we head towards the back end of today, it's been a wonderful event, hasn't it, Shirley? I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to Ben, talking to Ian, and getting a little bit of an insight into this sport. As we see some big power being launched there by car. Did you see the power there? 700 watts.
Wow, I mean, he's got shiny wheels. He's obviously been doing a bit of riding and desperate to do well today. But Matt, 253 riders taking part today, and as you say, it's been great fun. I mean, a real sense of community and very competitive. We always thought it would be.
Well, that's great. So 250 riders. Of course, we had three groups on the road: Giles Scott, Matt Gottrell and Ben Williams, joined by Chris Lawless from Team INEOS. So thanks for Chris, and of course Team INEOS, the pro cycling team, for letting Chris ride. But this is coming in towards the finale now. Some big watts are being dropped. Look at this, 900 watts. We're seeing three figures here. This is Gottrell on the front. Gottrell there is the finishing banner. And just coming round, it was another rider. The finishing banner is inside. Only a couple of meters to go now. It looks like Carr is going to take it on the line. Absolutely wonderful stuff. We'll get confirmation of that. But a superb sprint finish there on the mall in the shadow of Buckingham Palace. A superb end to this eBike4Bart, Shirley. Wonderful stuff here, and impressive rides all round, and obviously important money being raised by Bike4Bart.
Oh, it was so exciting. We hadn't seen David Carr, had we, the entire race, but goodness, came through right at the end. Perfectly timed amount of effort, and you know, he's a great. We saw him in the Foundation VT earlier on in the broadcast. You know, a great advocate for the charity, and very impressive that he's got the bragging rights of the INEOS team. I'm sure that's going to last a long time. But great race, so exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure that David Carr will have bragging rights as we see Ben Ainslie still out on the road. He's got a couple of kilometres to go, but Shirley, it is time for us to go as well. But I think I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for tuning in. Of course, to Team INEOS UK and Ben Ainslie in particular for putting on this event. And a last word from you, Shirley. We've summed it up a little bit, but a closing statement from yourself about how great this event has been.
It's been a good day, hasn't it? It's been great to watch, but also, you know, to commemorate Andrew Simpson, to remember the charity, and really just think of the good work it does. So, on behalf of me, you know, thank you everyone for taking part, for donating to the charity, and hopefully we'll see everyone back on the road next year in Bike4Bart.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much, Shirley. It's been a pleasure in this virtual world, chatting alongside you, watching these riders out on the road, raising money for what is a wonderful cause. But for now, from the virtual streets of London, from me and from Shirley, it's goodbye and stay safe.